Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Spider-Man: Brand New Day. Hi, I'm Peter Parker. I have something to tell you that's gonna sound crazy. Hello, I'm J-Law, but you can call me Justin, and if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast covering the world of movies, TV shows, gaming, and all things Geekcentric. And today, we're talking our favorite webhead, Spider-Man: Brand New Day. This is our spoiler-free review. A thwip thanks to Sony Pictures Canada for inviting us out early to see the movie for review. Now, I can't do this alone. You know that. So I'm joined by my two besties. They're webheads as well. Darcy Hudson, Nate Shelton. How you both doing?
Good, man. Good. I think our bodies are all going through changes, right? You know
Maybe
what I mean?
yours. Yeah.
I stopped changing a while ago.
My body's going through changes.
Dude, you're leaking things in all the wrong areas
My
at this point.
DNA is changing rapidly. You know, this is what happens.
Oh,
That's what happens.
guys.
I'm good, man. I'm so happy to be back with Spider-Man, though.
Yeah,
kidding me?
thwip. You know, what we like again. What it's been? When was?
I think it's been 5 years. 2021
5
was.
years.
Wow.
It's been
No
5
Way
years.
Home?
Yeah, because it was after No, was it before?
It was after Multiverse. I'm pretty sure,
I thought it was before.
wasn't it? Or was it before?
We can fact check
So
this.
it's been so
but
long.
I'll riff raff at the same time. But yeah, it's been a while without our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and especially after the last movie, which kind of was like a massive success for Sony
was before
for the story.
Confirming
Yes.
before right now.
It was confirming. Okay, we're confirmed for before Multiverse of Madness. But yeah, it's been a while. I'm excited that we're back, like you said, Nate. You know, there's been a lot of hype around this. You know, I'm gonna bring it back. What was your hype level going into this movie? How excited were you on a scale of 1 to 10? Darcy, let's start with you.
Again, returning to Spider-Man at the street level where we left him off at the end of No Way Home, I was easily at an 8 or 9 going into this because this is the Spider-Man I've been wanting to see for a while. So, yeah, I'm definitely high up there. This one, again, with also everyone joining the cast and who was going to be appearing in this movie, just brought that hype level all the way up there. So, yeah, stoked.
Yeah, I'm probably about the same, and it kind of sounds like I think I was at like an 8 for the last time we did this with the Odyssey as well, or whatever. But like, I feel like maybe I was an 8 for the Spider-Man, you know, Spider-Man-ness, if you will, the action. That's where my hype level was. But I kind of was maybe at an 8.5 or 9 for the brand newness of this, getting out of the
brand new day
home
of it all
trilogy. Exactly.
Yeah.
Getting into the brand new
Yeah.
trilogy, right? I'm wondering if the next one's going to be called brand new something, but just the just day.
Day might be the one to go with. I'm just saying.
They continue with the word day. Well, we'll see. But just with like the Destin Daniel Cretton of it all,
Yes. Yeah.
I think is what had me at a 9, and to see what he was going to do with these characters. So
Yeah, I'm with you both. I'm pretty much like, yeah, I'd say I was at a 9, and for all the reasons that you kind of listed there, Nate. You know, it's coming off of No Way Home, as you mentioned, Darcy. You know, the way we leave Spider-Man and Peter Parker at the end of that movie, what this movie is going to do in continuing that story. We're going to get a street level Spider-Man. You know, all the precedence was set up there at the end of No Way Home, and yeah, I was excited as well to just hear, you know, Destin stepping in to direct, you know, especially given his sensibility of wanting to keep things very, you know, practical to a degree, you know, mixing a lot of like that practicality with the obviously the spectacle and visual effects possibilities of what can be achieved, but then also like really focusing on the Peter Parker story as well, because I think that's what Destin does. He understands people, he understands emotions, and he's able to translate that so well through the cinematic language. So I was at a 9 when we went into this movie on the hype scale. So yeah, we're gonna revisit that hype scale at the end, just like we did that one time recently. I won the review that I think it was the Odyssey, right? It was the Odyssey that we did that.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go. It's all coming back to me. Yeah, so we'll revisit that in our final thoughts to kind of set things up of where we actually ended up feeling, if it met our hype level, if it exceeded, or if it fell short. Before we get started, just a quick note about how we'll be handling this review. This is a spoiler-free discussion, so we're going to stay within what Sony and Marvel have officially shared through the trailers, marketing, and cast announcements. However, we will not be talking about who Sadie Sink is playing, nor will we talk about her performance, other than saying she's fantastic. We also won't be revealing any other surprise characters or story elements that aren't part of the official marketing. We want you to experience those moments for yourself. If you've avoided all trailers and promotion material and want to go in completely fresh, this is your chance to pause and come back after you've seen the film. Later this week, we'll have a full spoiler discussion where nothing will be off limits. But for now, let's get to the synopsis and the official cast list. After the record-breaking global success of Spider-Man: No Way Home, Spider-Man: Brand New Day marks an entirely new chapter for Peter Parker and Spider-Man. 4 years have passed since the events of No Way Home, and Peter is now an adult living entirely alone, having voluntarily erased himself from the lives and memories of those he loves. Crime fighting in a New York that no longer knows his name, he's devoted himself entirely to protecting his city, a full-time Spider-Man. But as the demands on him intensify, the pressure sparks a surprising physical evolution that threatens his existence, even as a strange new pattern of crime gives rise to one of the most powerful threats he has ever faced. Spider-Man: Brand New Day is directed by Destin Daniel Cretton and stars Tom Holland, Zendaya, Sadie Sink, Jacob Batalon, John Barenthal, Tremel Tillman, Michael Mando, Mark Ruffalo, and Lisa Colin-Zayas. Spider-Man: Brand New Day is in theaters this Friday, July 31st. Okay, let's get into it. I want to kick things off like we do when we do our reviews, talking about the look and feel, because I think there's a lot to be celebrated here, just in that vein of just how different this feels from the previous trilogy. So Darcy, I'm going to throw it to you first. What were some standouts for you from look and feel of Spider-Man: Brand New Day?
I'd say that this Spider-Man movie of the MCU Spider-Man films is probably the one that made me feel the most like this is a Spider-Man movie. Just the way it
Mhm.
looks and the way that the web swinging and the way that the action was brought to life in this film is just so dynamic and so immersive. And again, the way that the new suit that we saw at the end of the movie left off with, again, bring us to that street level, the suit pops so much in this film, and again, it makes those action scenes even more, again, it works so well. And yeah, it looked incredible. This one had me thinking of the Insomniac Spider-Man games at times. Again, we got flashbacks to a lot of comic moments throughout the film. It's just a lot of great splash scenes. Yeah, it just, so much of this looked and felt so great and felt so Spider-Man.
Absolutely. Nate, for yourself.
Yeah, the lighting I think really stood out to me, and we noticed this in the trailers as well. I think the suit being a cloth suit, the POV shot of in the eyes, just as good watching it in the movie, in the context of the movie, as it is watching it in the trailer. But I think the lighting really worked, brought me back to like the Raimi verse of Spider-Man in the best ways, but with that sort of cinematographic sensibility. That's a word that we're going with. That Brett Pollock has, who he's worked with Destin Daniel Cretton a number of times, and I actually noticed, it felt there were a lot of action moments that just like blew my mind. Whether it's it's in the trailers, but like the hand sequences looked like incredible and reminded me a lot of the combat that we got in
Mhm.
Shang-Chi, the fighting sequences there, but also just the way that the camera is used from like you said, Darcy, an immersive standpoint. We're getting in there, it's flipping around. There's a moment where the camera goes upside down and we get to see the fight in that specific perspective. It is so well done, and I think the most fluid that we've ever had in a Spider-Man movie in general. And to
Mhm.
your point, Darcy, yes, brought me right into, it makes me want to jump into a Insomniac Spider-Man right now and get swinging. But I also have to say, Marvel's Wonder Man. There were a lot of shots that came through from that, and Brett Pollock worked on that as well. And there were just when the movie slows down and we get these beautiful wide shots of like just little tiny Tom Holland Spider-Man standing on a girder or something and gorgeous sunset in the background, right? Or just little moments like that throughout the film that just frame everything so well. Really, really worked.
Yeah, I think there's such a sensibility to the way it was shot to give like almost freeze frame portrait moments, allowing things to just kind of stay still. I
Yeah.
think that was really beautiful. But yeah, from a visual standpoint, I think this film has so much personality, and a lot of that is like you said, like is thanks to cinematographer Brett Pollock and his relationship with Destin, their understanding of how to achieve what they wanted to. This is very different from Wonder Man, in my opinion, like from a sense of like it's trying to blend some of the elements of like a handheld in the moment sort of like feel, a real personal feel, which is very, you know, Brett and Daniel style to a degree, but it's also bringing in a lot of elements that embrace the comic book roots, you know, like you guys were saying, the POV web swinging, you know, the phantom camera work, with the comic inspired freeze frames and the stylized slow motion scenes. It all makes it feel like Spider-Man in a very unique way. And then you have, as you were saying, you were saying lighting. It's just it's the color grade. If
Yeah.
anything, the color grade to this is so mature. It's not afraid to put things in the shadows and make things dark. And I think that's very reflective of where we are with Spider-Man. I had one nitpick, and it's that some of those stylistic transitions didn't always flow for me naturally as I had hoped. I loved the comic book freeze frames, and I loved how in some instances we were going from these very natural real moments into these comic book moments, but then there were some instances where they would just do a straight cut, and it felt like rather than it moving smoothly into it, again, it's a nitpick. I understand that, but I was trying to figure out how I could articulate it in the best way. So that's how I could do it, because I really did love seeing all those renditions of famous covers and splash moments. Like they worked so well with, like, again, visualizing Spider-Man in this new world, if you will, through the eyes of Destin and Brett. But that's being incredibly picky, because I genuinely love the direction they took. And like I said, the contrast and the color grade, the overall aesthetic, it perfectly reflects Peter, where Peter is emotionally. And I think that makes it one of the more visually distinct Spider-Man films in the MCU, versus what we had from, I guess, like the Homecoming trilogy, if you will. But yeah, I thought it was outstanding.
And just to clarify from the Wonder Man side of things, like you mentioned the color grading, I think that's kind of what I was getting, like that vibe. And it's going to sound dumb because this was a movie, it was a film, but filmic, right? Like that sort of almost like not afraid to blend the big Marvel action moments with some of those like just beautifully lit, gorgeous, like almost like indie film sensibilities or feeling, right?
Yeah,
Just where
there's moments, yeah.
it didn't feel overly polished in the best ways
Correct.
possible is what I'm trying
Yeah,
to say.
yeah, exactly. And that sensibility, again, that's the sensibility of Brett Pollock and Destin, knowing the kind of look that they want to achieve
Yeah.
with this film. And I think bringing in those elements, it really did work. Another part of obviously look and feel is the music. Michael Giacchino is back, and he deserves a lot of credit. You know, Nate and I were talking on the way back, and you know, at Comic-Con this past weekend, you know, he talked about how with this version of Spider-Man and the score, that parts of the music were like intentionally left out and like meant to feel incomplete, as sort of a mirror to Peter's emotional state. And you can really hear that in the
Mhm.
score, where you hear those moments, but then you know something's missing. And rather than just always building on like those heroic Spider-Man themes, I think the score just feels like it's trying to help negotiate with the audience and remind the audience that Peter isn't complete in a lot of ways. And I think it hits the point, in my
Mhm.
opinion. You know, it's just it's a very subtle way to reflect Peter's loneliness, and just, you know, I don't know. It worked really well for me. It was really really well done. I know, Nate, you said like specific moments really hit you when it came to the music.
Yeah, because I think Michael Giacchino knows how to use piano so damn effectively. This bastard. He, I remember when we talked to him for Lightyear, I got to ask him why he loves to make us cry so much, and he talked about the fact that like it's because that's the emotional core of these stories is what's going to stay with people, and the music and the performances by Tom and Zendaya, I think really help to drive that home. And yeah, when we hit those piano moments, like Justin, you were asking if I cried. I was definitely tearing up a little bit in some parts of this movie.
I
Um,
saw you wipe your eyes,
I
man.
was wiping my eye just maybe once or twice, but again, a lot of it had to do with that music, and I think it's what you're saying, Justin, about it, how the score is matching that tone so well. I think Michael Giacchino is just he's the goat, but I think he did such a good job with this score and focusing in on not being, to your point, it's not the massive crazy superhero stuff that we are used to. It's the stuff that's actually going to hit harder and more emotional and focus in on the characters and allow the characters and the performances to really shine through, and emphasize them, if that makes sense. I
Mhm,
think Fantastic Four, I love the Fantastic Four theme, right? But like that's not my favorite part of his score for Fantastic Four, right?
mhm.
It's the parts that work so well to hit those feels. But yeah, man, so good, such a good score.
Mhm. I also just like how, again, this is another way that it's kind of setting itself apart from the home trilogy,
Yeah.
Mhm.
in that this sound is just maturing along with Spider-Man and the stories we're being told or we're watching now. So
Mhm.
yeah, he's pulled it off again in the way that he's matched the soundtrack to the meaning of the story and the character's arc. So yeah, Giacchino knows what he's doing when it comes to these character moments, I guess.
Mhm. He's the goat, and honestly, like I know it's like it's an oversimplification, but it's like he really is. Like he just understands how to emotionally connect the music to the story
Hmm.
and to help drive what the story is telling. You know what I mean? Like you said, you pointed out Fantastic Four, that was heroic family. That score was heroic, right? And here we're talking about something that is a little, more serious in its tone, and focusing on a sort of singular character, which is why I think we hear a singular instrument that is guiding these emotional moments is to almost symbolize again his loneliness. And yeah, it's just so well done. They definitely, I've all felt like everyone just understood that this needed to feel different from what came before, while still
Hmm.
keeping all the best parts of of Spider-Man in the
Yeah.
MCU.
Yeah.
And I think with that said, we should get into performances, and talk about Spider-Man, Mr. Tom Holland as Peter Parker. Yeah, I got some thoughts. I'll throw it to you, Darce, first on how you felt about Tom Holland's performance, this time as Peter Parker, Spider Man.
I mean, Tom Holland is Spider-Man and Peter Parker. He's
Yeah.
every time he steps into the role, he becomes him more. Or it feels like he's becoming more like Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And this movie feels, again, at times, in the other ones, that you could see it coming through, but he wasn't quite that level of Spider-Man that I was looking for. This movie got him there. That street level
Yeah.
Spider-Man, the we saw his ingenuity. We saw, again, him going through this incredibly emotional turmoil with the loss of his friends and everyone who knows him, basically. So
Mhm.
the journey we got to see him take this character on was really cool this time around, and the result we get by the end of the film is very rewarding. And I think it all boils down to how much Tom Holland can really embody the character of Peter
Yeah.
Parker, and just fantastic.
Yeah. I think like you said, Tom Holland just continues to prove he understands Peter Parker inside and out. Like his best moments aren't just the action scenes. They're
Hmm.
they're the quiet ones where
Hmm.
a look or a pause tells you everything about the weight Peter is carrying. And I think that is just so indicative of an actor who understands the character that they're portraying in so many ways.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to not just Tom, but also the visual effects and costume folks behind the eyes in the suit. This time
Hmm.
around felt
Hmm.
like more than in previous iterations, where those little subtle reactions that you're talking about, Justin. they came through. They came through the suit and through the eyes. I thought that was so well done. But also just the elements that you're bringing up of like the slower moments, the moments to hit again those emotional heartbreaking elements in this movie. Yeah, Tom is just absolutely phenomenal. It did feel to me like he had a bit more of an accent this time around. I don't know if maybe I just haven't been like, it's been a while since I've watched him in this role and have seen him in other
I
roles
think
recently, but he felt like he had a little
the New
bit more of
York,
a
the
little
New
bit
York
more of like a
accent.
New
Yeah,
York accent this
I
time
have a
around.
theory about that. I feel like maybe it's a bit of performative mimicking, working off of John Barenthal,
I was just gonna say
Okay.
he's been
because
hanging
Yeah,
out with
yeah,
it's
yeah.
Punisher too
usually
much.
when
He's hanging out with Punisher too much. Is bad
he's
influence.
exactly, and it's interesting because you're absolutely right. He did swing into like a bit of a deeper New Yorker accent when he was in those scenes with John Barenthal
Yeah.
as Frank. So I'm wondering if that's a bit of that. You know what I mean? That tends to happen, not in a performative way, even in real life, but it does feel like he is acting off of John Barenthal, and that's why we're getting a little bit more of that accent.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he was great. He was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. You know, like what I love too is just you can feel how badly Peter wants to reconnect with MJ and Ned. And while believing staying away is the only way to protect them, you know, Tom is able to just kind of find a balance between that heartbreak with Peter and then that awkward charm as well. And I honestly think that this is one of his more restrained and emotionally mature performances as Spider-Man, in my
Hmm.
opinion. And it
Yeah.
really does show that he's grown up,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, on both sides,
Spider-Man
right?
is in a completely different place. And also to your point, like he seems like like he's playing the character in a way that is very very just like mature, but not just mature in the sense that like yes he's older, but also in just like you know there's moments where he takes a sip of coffee, he's like all right, got to get back to work, you know what I mean, like it he's there, he's being the Spider-Man, right, and
Hmm.
he's New York's Spider-Man,
Sure.
and yeah, Tom does such a good job in this role.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move on to talking about Zendaya, our MJ. She's back. Nate, what did you think about Zendaya's performance as MJ this time around?
She's still MJ. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that's the best part about her. She's still her MJ, her version of MJ.
Hmm.
What I mean by that is you know obviously this is no spoilers for this movie, but spoilers for all the other Spider-Man films, right? And you know she doesn't have her memory of Peter Parker, but she is still so MJ in this movie, and I love how that shines through. I love how Zendaya was able to still just kind of fall right into that character. And of course, obviously, you have that built in chemistry between her and Tom Holland that is just off the chain. And you cannot help but smile when you get to see any sort of interaction between these characters.
Yeah.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things too is that while it is the MJ we're all familiar with, it's also kind of not, because we're seeing an MJ without Peter and how what that would
Right.
look like, and it is
Hmm.
a slightly different MJ, and just the fact that we could pick up on that throughout the
Hmm.
film, and just the way that she's
She seemed
exploring
different,
this
right?
thing. Yeah, she
Yeah.
seems like a different
Yeah.
person, and
Yeah.
it's crazy how she still feels the same while that off feeling is just there, and she played it so well.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. She was fantastic. Zendaya is fantastic. You know, she's, as you guys said, she's still MJ. That signature dry humor, the awkward charm. But this film also gives her a chance to be, I think, a lot more vulnerable. Like more like we saw a lot of that vulnerability towards the end of No Way Home,
Hmm.
when the threats and the stakes got really high. But like she's really delivering in this movie, and in those strong emotional moments, it really hits. And like what's really great is like her chemistry with Tom. It continues to be one of the film's great strengths. Like
Mhm.
this series is great strength, and whether it's because they've worked together for so long or simply because they're just, you know, both actors who are actually married to each other, every scene they shared felt very genuine. It makes those quieter moments that I was mentioning with Tom and how he embraces them, it just made them, their quieter moments, some of my favorite in the film in a lot of ways too. Like it really does bring it back to the more human side of stuff, and obviously this fantastical MCU world for Spider-Man. But yeah, she did it. She did an outstanding job, and I think you're absolutely right. You can Darcy, is that you can see the nuance of difference while still recognizing the MJ that we know, but you can see that little bit of change, and I think that
Mhm.
was well done, well done. Um, let's talk about Ned, Jacob Batalon. I'm going to throw it to you, Nate. Why don't you give
Sure.
me? Well, no, I was remembering that they made there was a slight Nate Dogg reference,
Yes, he did hang out with me. We hung out at MIT. Me and MJ and him. We went skinny dipping in the pool. But no, Jacob Batalon is so good. He's older. He's wiser. He's flyer. In this movie,
so fly.
he's so fly, but he's so Ned. And I think
Yeah,
the best part about Ned is just how much, even without remembering Peter Parker is Spider-Man, how much he loves Spider-Man.
yeah,
Mhm.
And that is on full display in this movie so well.
yeah,
Tom and Jacob's chemistry is also so like phenomenal. Whenever we get to see those two interact, and so I think he was great. It's not a ton of him in this, but the
yeah,
moments that
yeah,
we get him are strong and some of
yeah,
the funniest parts of the movie.
Mhm.
And
yeah.
he's great. He's excellent. I love
Mhm,
him in this movie. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool to watch this one and just get to see Ned and Peter become friends again, basically over the
Mhm.
course of the film as they interact, and it's just heartwarming. Again, he is Ned, and he's just a lovable guy, no matter what you do to him, basically. And just again, some of the funniest moments were coming from just the look on his face, even, or just how he delivers a line. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's Ned. You gotta love him.
Yeah.
yeah. I think, yeah, like you said it, Jacob Batalon isn't in the film as much as I had hoped, but every scene reminds you why Ned is such an important part of Peter's life. He's still the lovable, funny friend we've come to know over the years. But what really stood out to me is that Ned represents everything Peter has lost, like even just from that friendship standpoint, right? Like,
Hmm.
well, the focus is like obviously on MJ and love and what that's done to him. I think Peter misses his best friend just as much, if not more.
Oh yeah,
And
oh
that
yeah.
emotional weight in some instances comes through at times when he's catching Ned, you know what I mean, just watching it, or you know reconnecting with him in some way. And I absolutely loved that. Again, to your point, what you said, Nate, like he's forgotten Peter Parker, but he hasn't forgotten about obviously Spider-Man, because that's the spell was supposed to thing. But that love is still there for Spider-Man just as
Yeah.
much as it was there. So it's almost like he still loves Peter, right? And to a
Yeah.
degree. So it's really cool. It
Mhm.
was really well done. Um, Mark Ruffalo's in this film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he plays this big savage gray
Teacher.
green Hulk teacher. That's it, teacher.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was obviously you hear like the Mark Ruffalo's role isn't huge, but Bruce Banner I feel serves as an important purpose. He offers Peter the perspective he needs from someone who in some ways understands guilt, responsibility, and just living with
Two lives.
two lives and the impossible burdens that come with it,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
and of course, audiences also want to see Spider-Man and the Hulk just go at it, and you're gonna see that. And for those moments, those absolutely deliver. Those are some sick moments. Going
Yeah.
back to the look and feel, we didn't really touch on some of the choreography and fighting and the stuff that takes place where it's very hand to hand, and this fight sequence with the Hulk and Spider-Man is treated like that as well, even when it is just a giant CG Hulk, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like Bruce brings emotional insight, while the Hulk just really is there to raise the stakes in a way that's both exciting and badass at the same time. I don't know how meaningful it is to have the Hulk, but it was meaningful to have Bruce Banner, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, again, he's not in it a lot, but when he is there, it serves a purpose, and it makes sense in the context of the story and where the story goes after that. So Yeah, I really liked it. I'm looking forward to seeing where Bruce pops up next because we
Yeah.
never seem to know if it's not gonna be
Yeah.
his own movie. It could be anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. It could be anywhere else, and that's kind of like the thing. We were I think we were talking about this on the way back, Nate, but like the Hulk is this character that you sort of that has become this has, the Hulk has become this character that you sort of throw into one of these movies in the mix with another character, and he does his Hulk thing, right? And
Yeah.
it was like that in Thor Ragnarok. Obviously in She-Hulk we had a little bit more of smart Hulk, and now we're kind of reverted to like this weird interstitial space with Banner and Hulk, but yeah, like it worked, but not as much as and one of the other characters that I think really did work. But Nate, for yourself, any highlights for you from Mark Ruffalo?
Mark Buffalo, dude. Ruffalo was great. I think everything you guys said. Yeah, I don't think he's part of like the most emotional performances, but he does. I think from a writing
Insight.
standpoint, they have his character provide some really good sort of just back and forth with Peter,
Mhm.
which we've seen in the trailers, and yeah, there's more that I'd love to talk about in our future podcast
For sure.
about those moments with the Hulk. But I think him and the Punisher, I think you come into these movies, and especially these Marvel movies, can kind of get a bad rap for sort of being like, we're we're gonna throw in all these action figures and put them in a bag and shake them up, and that's what it's not gonna fully work. I think he was definitely uh he definitely fit and added a lot to this movie, and I think John Bernthal as Frank Castle the Punisher also made a lot of sense once you get to the meat and potatoes of what this story actually is.
Well, yeah, let's talk about him because like you
Yeah.
said, like I was pretty surprised at how well John Barenthal fit into this.
Hmm.
It was like I was really curious how the character was, who's been known for like the R-rated stories and being, a little more aggressive, how he would work in a Spider-Man film, but he never feels watered down. He still feels like Frank Castle, intense, uncompromising, but every bit intimidating as well. It's just there's a different character for him to act off of, which gives us a different look at this character. And what I appreciated most is that he isn't just fan service, right? Like you could argue the Hulk is a bit of fan service to a degree, right? To see the Hulk and Spider-Man go at it. But the Punisher genuinely challenges Peter in ways, right? In his beliefs, and he earns this place in this story, which making him it just makes him one of the more impactful supporting characters in comparison to Mark Ruffalo. And I really loved their relationship. I thought it was is really good. And if anything, I know it's the Punisher, but if there's any reason to bring Spider-Man and Deadpool, which I really hope they do, I think there is a way to do that well and even push it a little bit more, when that time comes. And this I think is a good test for that, if that makes sense. And I'm sure
Mhm.
Darcy, you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the Punisher. He is still the Punisher we all know and love. It just at times it seems like he's almost going too far into the lighter or more comedic side. Like this is definitely the lightest version of
Mhm.
Frank Castle we've seen to point. Like he is making jokes and these puns are very
Yeah.
like meant to land, which
He's
he's
the
done before, but it
pun
just it
nisher.
yes, that very much so this time around. That was good. But
Didn't
You
deserve that
got a good
laugh, but I
response out of
appreciate
me.
it.
No,
I take
no,
it. I'll take it. I'll
yeah,
take it. Sorry, go ahead, Darcy.
it's late. It's late.
we're all running on steam here.
so while that did bother me at times, I've kind of come around on it a bit because when I think back to reading comics and stuff like that and seeing Punisher pop up in a Spider-Man or an X-Men or whatever story, he is usually a much lighter version of the character. He's not blowing heads off. People are telling him to stop doing that because we're heroes, we can't kill people, but it's neat to see this kind of translated to the screen this time around where it still feels like the Punisher, but it's a Spider-Man, it's like through the Spider-Man lens almost. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of fun to see it see him in this film. Yeah.
But I know what you're talking about, Darcy, in terms of like the last time that we technically saw the Punisher was in the Punisher One Last Kill
Mhm.
special presentation, which seen people with mixed feelings on. I enjoyed it. I think maybe more than I didn't like it. But it was one of those things coming out of that being like, how the hell are they going to go from that insanely violent thing to this lighthearted Punisher? And it's just one of those things where. I guess this is very, very light spoiler for One Last Kill, but One Last Kill ends in a way that feels like, okay, this is a brand new day for the Punisher now. He's embracing a new thing. He's going to become the Punisher and specifically a hero of New York. And I think this movie feels kind of like it skips that a little bit too far ahead in terms of the contrast in tone there. It feels like maybe a couple stories in between would have helped to get us to this point. That said, John Bernthal and Tom Holland were, they've been in movies together since like I think 2017. They were in a movie called Pilgrimage,
Yep.
and apparently while they were working on that film, they helped each other film their
Yep.
auditions for the Punisher and Spider-Man. And so, we saw them in the Odyssey. I watched their Hot Ones interview. These guys are buddies, man. These guys are friends. And, when we talk about chemistry between Tom and the rest of this cast, there is some excellent chemistry between Tom Holland and John Bernthal's
Yes.
Punisher that works so
It's
well in
yeah.
this film. And I think that makes up for the weirdness that I felt in my heart of that difference in contrast and tone between One Last Kill and this
Mhm.
movie. It sort of melts that away.
Yeah.
I still think of it obviously because I'm talking about it,
Yes.
but at the same time, it helps to sort of ease that. And by the end of this film, I was like, I want a Spider-Man and Punisher movie,
Right. Yeah.
wholeheartedly, like a full,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
But again, I think that this isn't new for the MCU. Again, we were
yeah,
reintroduced to the Daredevil through She-Hulk. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And through that lens, we saw
yeah,
a different version of Daredevil. I've talked
mhm.
about this immensely, and I think that
An even
that's
hornier version of Matt
there
Murdock.
you go, right? One that wants to, do his thing,
Wants to
and
get
and
green. Yeah.
yeah, he's yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the reality is that the windows that we see these characters in
Mhm.
are different from hero to hero or story to story, and when another character from another story slips in, that character changes in a way that fits that lens, but doesn't necessarily lose all of what made that character. And I
Yep.
think that's the balance that Marvel needs to kind of have with this when they're bringing these characters across different stories is to understand how do you keep but also adapt these characters to fit into this new story. Obviously the Hulk is just like going back to the Hulk character, he's just kind of like universal, right?
Sure.
He's sort of
Yes,
But
he
I
is
think
universal. That's why he doesn't get his own movie.
that's what I know. I was just about to make that joke. Thank you very
yes,
much.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. He is, and so he's a different kind of character. But like again, tonally, you got like R-rated characters showing up in PG-13 films. How do you make that adjustment? How do you make that change? So again, another Deadpool would be an excellent example, right?
Yeah.
Of a character who can still be quippy and funny, but maybe is purposely censored in the movie for the sake of it, for
Yeah.
that sort of fourth wall breaking mentality. So I
But
don't
the
know. I
core
think it still worked.
but the core story elements of the Punisher are still brought up and explored in this movie,
Mhm.
not
Yeah,
as heavily, but still there and
but as a
help to
comparison,
drive the
yes.
comparison between
Why
him
they do
and
what
what
they do.
Tom or
Yeah.
what Peter is going through,
Peter,
right? So,
yes,
yeah,
exactly. And I think
yeah,
that's what's really great is that we do get to understand the perspective of why the Punisher does what he does in a different way in relation to how Spider-Man does what he does. And I genuinely appreciate that. I think it just means that he doesn't need to live in a box, the
yeah.
Punisher of this R-rated, world. He can kind of step out and adapt to something new. So I think it was Very well done. Who do you want to talk about next? I got two more on the list here. Do you want to talk about Lisa first or
I was gonna
Tremel?
say Trammell Tillman. Bill plays Bill Metzger. I enjoyed his performance. I think he's so good in Severance, to the point where I was excited to sort of see him in something in this movie in a way that could sort of tap into just how good of a performer he is. It does feel like he was a little underutilized in this
Yes.
movie,
Yeah.
and I think that's a bit of a shame. I would have liked to have seen more of him. It's funny because I think he was kind of utilized just as much as Liza Colin-Zayas's character of Detective DeWolf,
Yeah.
but I was okay with her sort of instances throughout this movie. It felt the scenes with her felt much more rewarding
Mhm.
than anything that we got with Tremel Tillman, and I don't think that's on him. I think that's on the writing. But
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on there. But before I go, Darcy, I think I saw you had something to say there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if anything, his performance or his character just felt like generic, like political person or person of working in the government type thing. Like he
Yeah,
didn't bring anything new or revolutionary to a Spider-Man character or
for sure.
opposing character, if you will. So yeah, I gotta say though, like the Detective DeWolf was something that worked for me because again, it
yeah,
shows. It's bringing that humanity. She felt like an actual character that was adding something to Peter's story over the course of the movie. So I really enjoyed her performance.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with both of you. I think Tremel Tillman is incredibly charismatic. Playing Bill Metzger, he has a presence that immediately draws you in. But to your point, Darcy, there's like this sort of typical political thing to his character, and that makes you not trust him in certain instances. But yeah, he was underutilized, and I think that he was sort of written as a mystery. And to get someone like Tremel Tillman to play that kind of character, it feels like a bit of a waste because
yeah.
Tremel's so good. Um, but yeah, with Lisa as Detective Jean DeWolf, I think in many ways she fills the emotional role of like the Aunt May.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Not as a replacement, but as someone who genuinely cares about Peter or Spider-Man's
The
well-being.
person under the mask.
Exactly. Understanding that
Yeah.
there's a person under the mask. And while they're united in trying to stop crime across New York, she also recognizes the emotional and physical toll that being Spider-Man can have on him. And Liza Collins-Zayas is was the perfect casting. She brings so much heart. There's so much compassion, and she just adds another layer to like this sort of idea of like Peter's support system to a degree. Like just
Mhm.
it makes their relationship in this film feel very meaningful, like you said, right? Like there was more of a purpose, even though she wasn't in a lot. She was there, I think, more than Tremel was, and she was
yeah.
given more to do.
Yeah, honestly, Darcy, you mentioned Insomniac Spider-Man earlier in terms of like the look and feel of the swinging, and Yuri Watanabe, Detective Yuri Watanabe. That's exactly kind of the similar role that DeWolf is filling here, and I agree with you, Justin. I love that warmth that Liza is able to bring. Like, just let's get more of the bear. That now that show's wrapped, can we just get we've got a good portion of that cast already in the MCU, but like what are we doing? It'd be amazing.
Well, you ruined my segue getting into story,
You're
so
welcome.
thanks for that. So, but yeah, we're gonna talk about this story without talking about the story from detailed perspective. Who wants to kick things off? I've been kind of going back and forth, batting it between you two. I'll throw it to Darcy. I think I gave Nate the last one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I really enjoyed this story. Again, seeing a street level Spider-Man is something that I've always wanted to see in the MCU, and we got that, and I think it works really well throughout the course of the movie. I will say I didn't know that no pacing issues for the most part. Towards the end, it does slow down a bit, and that's where you kind of I feel like it almost goes on a bit too long,
Mm,
the ending. But one of my biggest gripes with it is the convenience of how everything wraps up. Is a
mm,
bit too convenient. And that's kind of one of my biggest issues with the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, it's tough on a
It's
spoiler free
very tough to not
to
Yeah.
to yeah.
Yeah.
context to that, and I get that. That's totally fair, and I'm excited to sort of dig into that a little bit more
In
when we
the
do our
upcoming
spoiler
spoilers. Yeah.
Mhm.
filled. Yeah, I will say, like, I think i- you know, coming off of Shang-Chi and previous MCU projects like Wonder Man, it was so exciting. And as I mentioned, like the hype level at a 9 for Destin in this movie. I think from a writing standpoint, I think the movie is so good when it does slow down, and when it gives us, obviously, again, the action is incredible. It's some of the best street level, to your point, Darcy. It's not a, especially coming off of No Way Home being such a massive thing,
Mhm.
this coming in and just being so, like, just simple, like,
Very focused.
we go
Yeah.
into I think we're in a convenience store at least 3 times in this movie. You know what I mean? Like little things like that. It's great, and I think the way that they're able to take their time with these characters, especially, and really hone in on the character of Peter Parker through this story is what is so fantastic about it. He's a more
Mhm.
mature Spider-Man, but this is really a Peter Parker story, and
Mhm.
I think they did a great job with it. I agree with you, Darcy. I think it got to a certain point where I was like, how much more of this movie do we have? But I didn't by the time we got to the ending of it, I was fine. I was good.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I enjoyed it, but I do agree. I think there's a slight thing with pacing, but to get all these slow moments, that's fine. That's fine with me if it needs to be a little messy that way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have the same sentiments in that, it's definitely not perfect, but I think it gets a lot right. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think Spider-Man Brand New Day, it tells exactly the story it needed to tell after No Way Home. This is a much more mature Spider-Man film, not just because of its visuals or the performances that we were talking about before, but because of what Peter is going through. At its core, it's about grief and balance and learning you can't carry everything on your own. Ignoring what's happening inside of you doesn't make it just go away. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It only makes things harder. And I thought that was a really powerful direction for Peter's journey. And I think it just really connects with just the realities of everyone's life. But what really surprised me is that, even though Tom Holland spends much of this movie in the Spider-Man suit, obviously to protect his identity, this is still one of the most Peter Parker focused stories we've gotten.
Mhm. Mhm.
Through his body language, through his voice and the performance, and even like you said, the way the eyes work to kind of capture Tom's performance. You never lose sight of the person behind the mask. And I think that's really important. The supporting characters are all there to reinforce uh um his journey in different ways. The Punisher, again, like I said, challenges Peter's beliefs. Bruce offers perspective when he needs to hear it, and I feel like by the end of it, the title Brand New Day truly earns that title. It feels like this is it just feels like this is the beginning of the next chapter of this version of Spider-Man, and
Mhm.
what a great way to kind of take us from what happened in No Way Home to the other end, him getting over that and dealing with the fallout of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think he did a really great job at kind of, like you said, Nate, like keeping it very focused on the Peter Parker of it all. And yeah, that really worked for me. It did. It's especially in those quiet moments, like you said. All right, well, listen, we've talked as much as we can without getting into
I want to
spoilers.
talk about more, but we
Well,
can't.
we will, man, we
We
will.
will.
But
Save
but
it.
but listen, let's get to our final thoughts, and we're going to be rating it out of 1 to 5 web shooters. And leading into that final thoughts, I'd love to know, where did this land on the hype scale? Did it exceed? Did it not match? Let me know. Darcy, you're up.
Yeah. So going into this, again, was around an 8 or 9 hype level. I came out of it definitely feeling justified with that hype because it delivered on so many things that I was looking forward to from a Spider-Man movie, especially again talking about the street level of it all and really focusing on the Peter Parker and the man behind the mask and what he just went through in the last movie. So I think it was a really cool follow-up and a really nice, like you said, Justin, beginning of the next chapter of this Spider-Man story. And I can't wait to see where it goes. Again, my only issue with the movie is something I can't talk about. So we'll just leave it at that. And I'm going to say that I'm going to give this one 4.5 out of 5 web shooters.
Oh, that's higher than I was thinking. I thought you were going to sit at like a 4. Okay, cool. Okay, cool.
No.
Nate, how about for yourself?
Yeah, going into this, I think I said I was at an 8 and 9 for the Destin of it all. I'll bump both those up. I think I came out of it with the hype level at a 9, and the Destin stuff really, really worked to refresh this character and these stories. And going forward, I'm excited to sort of see, how do we adapt from what we got in this film. So yeah, I think coming out of this, I'm definitely at a 9 on the hype scale. I think this is it's such a great look at this character post No Way Home, and the way that they're able to just sort of kind of in the least convoluted way, it feels like, present us a story about asking for help. And I think that is just, it's such a beautiful sentiment for the character of Peter Parker. And again, we talk about the idea of living behind a mask and being behind a mask, and the, you brought up Detective DeWolf and showcasing the parallels between her and the Hulk and Peter and the Punisher, and all of those things work just so well enough that I just really, really, really enjoyed all of those elements. And then you tie in the incredible score, the phenomenal camera work, the great, excellent lighting, and the dope cinematography. Like, man, again, you saw the stuff in the trailer from the hand that you've just seen, like a little bit of it. Wait till you see this movie, the fight sequences with the hand and the Hulk and just all this stuff. It's just so cool. So yeah, I landed at a 4.5 out of 5 web shooters for this one. I don't think it is my favorite. I still would give that to No Way Home, but this is a very, very close second for me.
Nice. Yeah, I'm with you. I think overall, I think this lived up to my hype. The expectations that I had, it met them. Destin Daniel Cretton understands Spider-Man. More importantly, he understands Peter Parker. I think he takes the emotional ending of No Way Home and builds the next chapter in a way that feels honest, mature, and very much earned. I think that this film isn't perfect, and there are moments where pacing does feel uneven. I would say that a little bit fast off the top, a little bit slow in the middle. I also think that there's some ideas, without getting into spoilers, that didn't really make all that much sense. And it's not as cleanly done as I had hoped. What this film feels like, it's always committed to telling a meaningful story about a hero learning who he wants to be. And what I appreciated most is that this feels like Peter's graduation into adulthood in a lot of ways. The Home trilogy was about growing up, while Brand New Day is about figuring out what kind of Spider-Man and what kind of person Peter Parker wants to be and who he wants to become. And like you guys said, it has really exciting action sequences, fantastic visual aesthetics, the color grade, the cinematography, everything's done with such love and attention to detail, and just the idea of like, I know it sounds cliche to say, but like the movie making experience, it's on full display, and you see it in the way the action is handled, the attention to detail, the commitment to practical and more hand-to-hand combat with fight choreography that feels very mature, and more mature than what we had in the Home trilogy. I also think that there's just a great sense of appreciation from Destin to the entire crew behind this film and what they brought to help bring this movie to life. Like, he's been posting a lot of retrospectives or focuses on different people that have worked on this film and have played a part in it. And I think that just shows how much appreciation Destin has to each of the members of the team that helped him bring this story to life. And that's, that's like any good filmmaker acknowledging that, it's not just one vision or one person. It's a team of people that bring this together. So, there's just so much love that's been poured into this movie, and you really do see it on the screen. And on top of that, you have outstanding performances, and there's just a lot of heart. And I think this makes whatever the next chapter of this story is, it's a really strong start for a new chapter for Spider-Man. So I'm gonna round mine to 4 out of 5 web shooters. And again, there's more thoughts to come, which we will share in a spoiler filled capacity. But that's it. If you're wondering if there's an end credit, there is an end credit. There's no mid credit, so you'll want to stay till the end, until after.
Yeah, you can go pee like Justin did, and then
I did.
ran back.
I didn't
Stay
run
in the
back.
hallway.
I had enough time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of credits to roll, so
Yeah.
I came back probably mid credits.
Yeah.
Of the mid credits of the crawl.
Mhm.
But I was surprised that there wasn't a mid credit and an end credit, but there is just an end credit scene. We'll talk about that on the spoiler filled, but that is it for our spoiler free review for Spider-Man Brand New Day. Again, a huge thanks to Sony Pictures Canada for inviting us out early to see this movie for review. Spider-Man Brand New Day is in theaters July 31st, this Friday. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. And let us know when you see the movie what you thought. If our scores are too high or too low, or if we just don't know what the hell we're talking about, well, you can reach out to us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or if you want to yell at us, you can do so on Twitter or X.
That's where most people yell at us.
Yeah, if they're going to yell at us, and they call us shills and, tell us that, someone's
Dude,
paying us.
just some of the best
I haven't seen a
dialogue
paycheck
around the Odyssey.
Dude, it's fantastic. People love that, like, hate that we love things. It's awesome. But you can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at We Are Geekcentric. We got a lot of other episodes out now for you to enjoy on podcast feeds, and we got more episodes to come this week. Like we said, we got a spoiler filled for Spider-Man Brand New Day coming later this week. We got Batman Caped Crusader Season 2 coming up later this week. We just posted our San Diego Comic-Con breakdown. It's our This Week in Geek episode. We talk about not as much news, but a lot of trailers. It's about almost a 2-hour episode. So, go give that episode some love, please. And give us some love too, because we would love to hear from you. Give us a comment wherever you listen to podcasts. Give us a 5-star review. It goes a long way with helping Geekcentric get out there, because, hey, we are Geekcentric and you can be too. Nate, Darcy, thank you for whipping around really late with me. And as we say,
love ya.
Laters.
Peace.